Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It has been a long time that I've done a video, and so I thought let's do a video on this topic called Microsoft Form Recognizer. So Microsoft provides a set of services under the applied AI set of services, in which Microsoft Form Recognizer is one of those services. So in this video, we will see what is this. Next, we will see what are the use cases when you want to use Microsoft Form Recognizer. How is it different from traditional OCR software? We'll try to integrate it with some of the pre-built models that Microsoft provides out of the box, and we'll also try to integrate it with some of the custom models which we will have to train this Microsoft Form Recognizer service to understand, and we'll see how we integrate with those as well. So let's get started with what is it. So on a very high level, what Microsoft Form Recognizer does is it's a cloud-hosted service which Microsoft provides. You send your documents or images to this service. The service will do a OCR on those documents or images and then return you a result which is in JSON format. What happens is you are not using your own infrastructure, so all the AI-based processing that is happening on Microsoft servers inside Azure, and then you also get a response back in time which is in JSON format, which you can easily integrate with your downstream applications to do further processing on the data that is returned to you. So this is on a very high level what Microsoft Form Recognizer is all about. So where does the AI comes into picture? So Microsoft Form Recognizer is provided, the services within it is provided in two broad classifications. One is models which are provided by Microsoft, which we also call the pre-built models. Okay, so what these pre-built models does is, if you see the names of these are self-explanatory, right? So Microsoft has trained these models to kind of handle documents of any of these types. So you have invoices, receipts, business cards, identity documents, which includes your say passports, your driving license, etc. Then you have health insurance cards and bunch of tax related forms in US. They have recently added contracts, which is currently in private review, but soon it will be available as well. So this was the first classification, right? The second classification of services that Form Recognizer provides is custom models. So custom models are used for scanning documents which are non-standard in nature. Say for example, you have a business, and in that business you are passing on a feedback form for your customers. Suppose it's a restaurant and you want to see how the services were for each customer. Of course, you can provide an online link for which you will have to host the online page somewhere, and I think you have greater chance of getting feedback if you give a physical form, a paper, along with the check, and they just fill out few questions when they pay. So that's where custom model comes into picture. It's not restricted by any of these types. You can train any and every documents possible using custom models and use that model to extract data from those documents. We'll see an example in this tutorial as well. Now, coming back to what we wanted to cover, right? So we covered what it is. So on a high level, it's a intelligent AI-based OCR service which Microsoft provides, which has a lot more flexibility in terms of type of documents that it supports, and that the ability that you can train it to suit to your needs. Now let's talk about some of the benefits and use cases. First benefit is that you are not buying expensive OCR software, right? You are not getting into very complicated integrations along with that software as well. Second benefit is it is cloud ready. It's hosted in cloud. You don't need to have that infrastructure to host these services. These are serverless, so these get scaled up pretty quickly if the load is on the higher end. Now let's talk about some of the use cases. So when it comes to use cases, it varies business to business, right? So suppose you have a business where it's required for you to know your customer better, and you need to store a driving license for your customers. So of course you can scan the driving license or manually enter the driving license number, etc. But you might automate that entire workflow by scanning the driving license and passing it to Microsoft Form Recognizer, and Microsoft Form Recognizer will return that data to you in a JSON format, which can be read by your application, which is at your end, and it can do whatever it wants with the data. Either it can store it or use it to verify against the name of the user who you are interacting with, etc., etc. Another use case for especially with custom models, right? Like I mentioned, suppose you have a restaurant where you want to get feedback from your customers, and that feedback form can look something like this, which is a non-standard document what Microsoft supports out of the box. So you'll have to custom train these documents so that you can extract data from this. Having said that, now let's move on to see how we set up our form recognizer and how we integrate with our backend code. So the first step in setting up a form recognizer instance is to get into Azure, right? So if you don't have Azure account, you can sign up for one. I think for the first 1 year they give you a lot of free services worth of a couple of hundreds of dollars, and then there are some free services which are ongoing as well. So the one which we are going to use here is this form recognizer service, and if we talk about the amount that you need to pay for this is nothing, right? So the free instance allows you to do up to 500 pages per month. That's something that we are going to do as part of this tutorial. Of course, if you're planning to use it for your business purposes and where you will be using it on a much larger scale, you have different slabs in which you can subscribe to. So for this tutorial, we'll use the free container and it will not cost you a penny. So now here what you need to create is, first you need to create, I would say, let's create a resource group, which is nothing but a logical grouping of different resources. So I'll create a resource group here, just name it form recognizer. So my FR test maybe. This is nothing but a resource group. I'm from India, so I will just mark it as India, South India maybe, and then review and create, validation completed, and I will hit create. So this is not creating a form recognizer resource, but it's just creating a resource group inside which I will keep the form recognizer. So now the resource group is ready. I come here. Here I will now create my form recognizer instance. So the form recognizer to work, you need to create a serverless instance of the service by itself, right? So here we will type form recognizer. Here it comes. Search for it. This is what it is, and you will hit create form recognizer. So it will take you to a page where it'll ask you about your subscription, your plan, etc. So here if you see, right, so we say we'll again select something near to me, so maybe Central India. By the way, form recognizer might not be available in each and every region, so you'll have to check which is your closest region for better performance. So you can select that region. Now I need to give a name for this. This name has to be pretty unique because the name will be used in the URL as well, right? So let me put it as my FR instance followed by, say, some number 1 2 3 4 5 6. Is it okay? Yes. It gives a green tick, so this should be fine. In the pricing tier, you need to select free, right? So this will make sure that you get 500 pages a month without a penny. Now we go to network. So here it asks you whether this resource can be called from anywhere, right? So for now we'll mark it as guess, but in real world you might want to put it behind a VPN or try to secure it further, right? So for now I will go with all networks so that it's accessible over the internet. Now you have identity, you don't need to do anything for now. Tags you can skip, and then it will review, validate, and if the validation has passed, you can hit create. So at this point, it is starting creation of this resource or the form recognizer instance in the location that you selected, right? So once the deployment is ready, what we can do is we can start using it. So while the deployment is going on, we'll now see how you're going to use this instance. We'll see how we'll use it programmatically in a bit, but before that, let me show you something called a Form Recognizer Studio. So this is another site which is hosted by Microsoft. What you can do is you can manage the Form Recognizer instance or use it using the interface which is provided in this site. So the site is here, and I will put it in the comment section as well. Now what we are trying to do here is say I'm trying to choose one of the pre-built models. So I will choose the identity documents because that's one of the most common models. So what you can see here is they have some sample documents which are already there, right? There's SSN, there's a driving license, and so on. So what happens is when the first time you will get inside this, it will ask for your API endpoint and your API key, right? Because whatever you try here will be done against the resource that you have created. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you put the API endpoint, which you will get once it is deployed. So let me go back to here. Deployment is complete. Go to resource. You'll find the endpoint. You'll find the endpoint here. You can just copy it, put it here. This is your endpoint which goes here, and again your API key. You'll have to separately go to the API key, manage keys, and you need to take one of the keys here, okay, and then you put it here. Okay, so yeah, you can see the key, but don't worry, by the time you see this video, this key won't be there anymore. This instance will not be there anymore. So use this. Now once that is done, what you can do is you can try with some of the sample documents which Microsoft has provided here, or you can browse for a file from your local. So what I've done here is I've downloaded a few sample driving licenses. These are just available over the internet, so no identity stealing going on here. So these are all sample documents, as you can see. Now you select the document and you hit run analysis. As simple as that, right? You have already selected identity documents as the type of document that you're scanning here. So once it runs, you can see it has extracted all the data from each of the sections, right? So if you scroll down, you will see each of these labels have its own values, which it has extracted using Form Recognizer. Now the result comes to you not in this format, rather the result comes to you in a JSON format. Now since it's a little hard to read it here, what I will do is I will just take this whole JSON out of here and I will create a new JSON file, which I have something like this here. Ctrl A, Ctrl V. I replaced it here, and now let me see. Let's try to see how is this document kind of structured, right? So analyzed result is the structure inside which all the data will be present. Okay, it tells you which version of the API you are using and which kind of model you are using. So here you're using identity documents. This tells you that, right? Now content is nothing but the whole text, as a simple OCR would do, right? But Form Recognizer does much more than that, right? It gives you key value pairs which you can use in a programmatic fashion. So now I'll just close the pages here. So what it does is if there are multiple pages, it will give you results or data from page by page. Same for paragraphs if you have one, styles if you have one. So we are not very worried about these. So what we are worried about, or what we are interested in, is documents tag. So inside documents tag, you will see that there is just one document tag, right? So in this document, what you would see, it tells you the document type. Now remember, we did not tell we are passing a driving license, right? Because it is trained to read and understand and classify documents, it was able to tell you that this identity document is actually a driving license. You could have passed a different document with a different result here. So this helps you to identify that how do you want to treat this document. Maybe you already know it's a driving license. If not, then you can use this to process it as a driving license, right? Now we'll move on from here. So now there are multiple fields that we saw in this field section, right? So this is where these fields come into picture. So there's an address, there's a country, date of birth. So each and every field in this document will be present as part of the field section. So now what I'm interested in showing you is, these are straightforward. You go to, say, you want to check the first name of the person. It will be stored here. You can see Andrew Jason. I hope it's right. Andrew Jason, right? So now I want to show you this address field. Now this address field has the address extracted, right? But what it also does is it gives you a further breakup of this address. Now if you see this here, let me close this. Value address has few more tags. So it gives you the house number, road number, postal code, and other breakdown of this address as well, which you can use for your processing. Make sense? Now everywhere you see either here or here, you will find something called a confidence. Now see guys, at the end of the day, this is something that is trying to do its best to read something from a file or from an image, right? So there is no guarantee that 100% of the time you will get 100% accurate results. So that's what this confidence tells you. This confidence tells you that depending on the text or the image, how confident is Form Recognizer to tell that, okay, whatever I've extracted the text correctly. So this is what the confidence is. Using this, you can guess or you can calculate how reliable is the extraction. If the document was very mutilated or the printing was not correct or very faded out, this might go down. So whatever the result it comes to you, take it with a grain of salt, because there might be situations where it's not reading it correctly. Okay, so where in processes or use cases where accuracy is of utmost importance, you make sure that whatever you are getting it, you are verifying it against some other reliable sources before you make decisions on top of that, right? Okay, so now this is something that this UI provides us, right, with the results and the JSON. But how you're going to programmatically access this and use it for your calculations, your computations, is something that we will move next. Now coming to coding part of things, where we want to integrate this whole solution that we have, whole setup that we have, with a C# program where you pass this document dynamically from your local, get the response in form of a JSON, process it and do something with it, right? So let's try to do that now. Now when you go to, you can get started with this code tab which you have here. It shows you by default in Python. Here we are going to use C#. So we select so and copy this whole thing. Next, what I've already done is I have this console application created just for testing purposes, and we have this program.cs. So before we get started, as I said, there's already an application, a simple console application which I've created, but you will have to add dependency here, So we'll go to packages and go to manage NuGet packages. So here you will have to search for, I've already installed this, but you will have to search for so here you will have to search for Azure AI Form Recognizer. So this is nothing but a SDK which actually connects and interacts with the backend service which is hosted on Azure and makes life simpler for us. So you don't need to deserialize, serialize the JSON. Instead, this takes care of all of that and allows you to access the response programmatically in a much easier way. So what we'll try to do is we will pass this driving license first and see whether the same JSON that we just saw, whether we can see it here and can print it on console from this application. Then what I want to do is we'll pass a set of driving licenses, right? And we'll read those driving licenses and store the first name, last name and the driving license number into an Excel sheet, right? That looks or sounds more realistic than what you would like to do rather than just printing it on console. So we'll go to that use case, but before that let's try to just hit this and make sure that the integration from my C# program is working fine or not. Okay, so same way, the endpoint, we will go back to our form recognizer instance. Let me go to overview to get copy of this endpoint and put it here. In real world, guys, be very careful. Don't put your API key in your program. It needs to be encrypted or kept in something called like a Azure Vault, where you authenticate it, where it's kept safe. Okay, so this is my API key again. I'm showing you the key because I will anyways change it by the time I upload this video, so you guys don't do this when you use it. So now my instance is set, my key is set. What you're trying to do is, so instead of passing it from a URL, we want to select a local file, right? So I don't need this, to be honest. I can comment this line out. And then what I want to do here is, if you see, analyze document from URI async, from URI is something that we'll get rid of. Instead, what we will do here is we'll pass a byte array or a stream from our local storage to the service to get a JSON response. So here, instead of this, we need, if you can see here, it's asking for the third parameter to be a stream, right? So I will say new memory stream, right? And file dot open, or we can say file dot read bytes. Here we'll have to give the file name. Now, as I showed you, I already have downloaded these pictures. So I already have these samples, so what I will do is I will pick one of these 6 dot. Let's pass this one and see how it works. So 6 right, just double checking that. Okay, let me fix this. Cool. Okay, so we are all set here. Now what we'll do is we'll run this program, and now let's move on. Here what it does is, here it calls in async manner and it waits until it is completed, until the OCR extraction in Azure is completed and the response is sent back to this. Now it checks whatever the response is, it stores in this identity document, which is a analyzed result type object. Once the document is here, because it's just a single document that we are processing, that document gets stored here, and then we check whether if this is an address field, right? So what it does is it checks for address and stores it here. Now it checks whether this field type is, so we'll have to change this, address. If the field type is address, then go ahead and print the address on screen, right? So remaining of the program I will just remove for now to keep it simple, and we can run it at this point. Let me put a breakpoint here and a breakpoint here. Here we go. So let me place the windows side by side. It's easier to read. Okay, so now at this point we will be making the call to make sure that everything is working fine. So this is the time it's waiting. Now looks like we do have a response, so that's good news, right? So we'll move on. Okay, that's good. Okay, here if you see the address type is address, so it will match here. Okay, now I think the sample code that Microsoft has, it's kind of little outdated because this value is incorrect. Actually, in this address field, if you see here, there's a content, and inside the content that stuff is, because the address is, because value is a object by itself. So we'll change this to content, okay, to me. Okay, and we move on and let it go on now. So if you see here, we did get the address, which we hopefully have passed. Let me double check. We have passed 6. Just to make sure the read was right. Okay, 123 North Street, 123 North Street, apartment 2, Topeka. As you can see, guys, I mean, this is not a very high quality image. It's already pixelating here, but still it did a very good job. Kansas, oh wow, 666 1234. That's good. That's good. So yeah, it read it fine, and we are able to access it programmatically as well. Now in the next step, what we are going to do now is we are going to pass multiple of these driving licenses and see if we can get a collection of those and write some of the key parameters out of it into Excel sheet and can read it from the Excel sheet. So guys, as last part of this video, what we are going to do is we are going to programmatically pass all these 6 documents, which are driving licenses, to Form Recognizer in a combined PDF. I just combined this into one long PDF document which has like 6 pages having all these documents. So we'll pass all of these, simulating a real life scenario where you might get many documents, you're scanning it all throughout the day, and at the end of the day you are just sending it to Form Recognizer and extracting the data out of it. So our target is to make an Excel out of this document through Form Recognizer, where we will be storing the first name, last name, and the driving license number, just for demo purposes, right? These 3 items into an Excel sheet and check whether the extraction is correct or not. To do that, what I did was, first of all, you need to include another package from Nugget called Array to Excel. So I can go quickly to Nugget and make sure you see this. So this is one by Leonard Salavatov, I hope I pronounced it correct. So this converts list, data tables, data sets to Excel very quickly. It gives an extension method on list and data tables where you can just convert it to Excel and write it to a file. So I'm using that for getting the Excel job done quickly. Along with that, what I've done is I've created this sample, very simple POCO class, if you can call it so, where it has the first name, last name, and the document number, which is nothing but the driving license number, inside a class called driver. In the main program, I will not bore you by doing it line by line by line. What I'm doing here, the changes which I've done here is, once I reach here, initially I was just taking one single document from here. If you see the previous part of the video, here I'm taking the list, right? Because there could be multiple documents that are coming, and storing it now instead of an analyzed document object, I'm storing it inside a list of analyzed document object, right? I also create a list for drivers where it will store my array of drivers that are getting extracted. And then I'm passing the PDF file now instead of one single file, and getting the response back from Microsoft Form Recognizer. One thing to note, however, is the demo version, or rather the free version of Form Recognizer only supports 2 pages of such documents. Okay, so you cannot pass multiple pages in the free tier. For that, you will have to go to a paid tier. So another alternative is you pass it page by page by page or document by document, but again that will be slower because you'll be passing multiple documents. So just something to keep in mind, because if you use the free tier, it will, even if your document has like 10 pages, it will just give you a response for first 2 documents in that document, right? So to circumvent that, what I've done is, for now I've used a paid version of Form Recognizer. This is different, so that will give me all 5 documents as a response, right? So now what I'm doing here is, once I have this analyzed document object, rather here, I'm just looping through it. Simple, I'm just setting the object here and adding the object to the list, right? At each iteration, I'm extracting the same way we extracted the address some time back. I'm extracting the first name, last name, and document number. Okay, so these are fetched using passing the name of the parameter into the try get value method. Like we were passing address before, we need to pass the name of the parameters that we want to extract from the document. So what it does is it extracts it and stores it in respective properties in the driver object, and then I'm storing the driver object in the drivers list. Once that is ready, exporting to Excel is a breeze by using the third-party library which I just told you, array to Excel. You just need to do dot to Excel, and it stores in this Excel object, which you can just write all bytes here. As simple as that. So having said that, let's just run it now. If everything goes fine, then we'll see that the same place where my images and the combined PDF is, there should be an Excel file which will contain the first name, last name, and the driving license number for all these document types in one go. So let's run this. Let me put a quick breakpoint here. Okay, so now we have the response here. Now if you see in documents here, it's giving me 6 documents. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it did scan all 6 and gave me results for all of these 6. So we are good. We just run it from here on, and my program is done. Good. So now let me go back to my location. Here we go. The Excel is here. I'll just open this Excel and open the PDF as well, side by side. Okay, so this is the PDF. Let me put it on the left and the Excel on the right. So we do see that we have 6 documents which have been extracted here. So for the first one, license number 012345678, so belongs to New York State, and the first name is document sample, so document sample. So this is a good thing about using pre-built model. If you see, New York State has the ID mentioned here in terms of ID, but other states might have in a different way. For example, Arkansas has driving license number here, right? So 99999. So Microsoft has trained it in a way so that it knows, depending on the type of document, which all places you need to extract the driving license number for. So that's why I wanted to include this column so that you guys understand the benefits of using a predefined model which Microsoft has already trained. So again, name is sample Nick. Yeah, so that's correct. Andrew Jason, yep. 999, yep, this works fine. Then sample Janice Ann sample, good. And then we have sample Jane sample, yes. And driving license number, this has a different way again, license number, seems like extraction is correct here too. And Karen Elizabeth, that's correct. And the license number K12345678. So it did a very good job, I would say. But in real world, there will be situations, like I said, where the extraction might not be very accurate. But in general, it does a very good job in extracting those and helping you automate the downstream processes for your use case. So in this video, we will end it here. In the next video, what we are going to do is we are going to go through the custom model, right, which we initially discussed. In that custom model, what we are going to do is I created some sample feedback form for fictitious restaurant, Lakeside Cafe, and then I filled it up manually, handwritten, and I made it like a 6-page document. We will train Form Recognizer to understand this document, right? And then we'll extract data from this and see how it goes. So that's all for this video, guys. I will be uploading the next video in a week's time. So stay tuned, and if possible, please subscribe to my channel.